Hi, everybody. We have Mariah with us here today, and she's heading marketing at Malomo. And of course, she spent more than 5 years in the post-purchase realm, where she is working with hundreds of merchants, helping them increase their repeat purchase rate. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this. It is a Monday that we're recording on, and it is always a brilliant way to start the week where I get to just chat about strategies and all those fun things. So yeah, happy to be here. And as from my intro, 5 years in the space, I've loved it. And so yeah, this is a great opportunity. Big fan of the show, and I cannot wait to just share more and hear from your audience.
Amazing. So today we prepared 3 questions for you. So the first one is, so what is the number one mistake brands make after a customer places an order?
Yeah, I love this question because I think whether you're an operator or you're a consumer, you can kind of put one of those hats on. And so when operators are thinking about, okay, customer click that buy button, they got to someone to take that action, they're all excited. The typical post-purchase experience just falls off. So if you're in Shopify or other platforms, I'm most familiar with Shopify. If you're in one of those platforms, the post-purchase experience typically looks like an order confirmation email and different transactional emails that say, your order is being prepared, it's going to be shipped out, it's shipped out, and now it's delivered. And so the biggest mistake is going silent on those customers that just bought from you. And this is where the Malomo side of things comes in, because we see customers engage with order tracking pages 4.6 times on average per order. And so there's a lot of opportunity there that if you take the time to invest in a strategy that re-engages customers while they are waiting for their order to get to your doorstep, that is really where you can make the most of that customer relationship and really engage them. You can decrease the fear around, buyer's remorse. Did I make the right decision? Did I get the right thing? Did I go with the right brand? So I think there's this switch happening now where people are starting to realize that after the customer clicks the buy button, that is when the relationship actually is starting with the customer. And so more brands are pouring and investing into that space post-purchase of saying, oh, wow, they just became a customer. Let me show them on their tracking page other items that might be complementary to what they just bought, and they can add it to their order quickly. That's kind of where you get that repeat purchase rate that Malomo brings in. And you had discussed that, I've spent 5 years of my career doing so, of really just educating people that you can do this in the space. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest mistake, is people just kind of leave that as a blank space and allow the customers to be sent to a carrier webpage instead of back to their website to re-engage them with other products or even educational blog posts. One of my favorite pots and pan, one of my favorite pots is from, I won't name them, but a brand, and they use their order tracking page to share tips and tricks of how to take care of them, because they did a bunch of research and were getting a lot of returns because people weren't cleaning them the right way. They were scrubbing off the nonstick part of the pan. And so they use that order tracking page to educate their consumers. And then they saw a huge decrease in their returns and a lot more customer satisfaction around the quality of the product and having them. So that's just one little use case that I've seen brands who kind of pour into, that space in between someone clicking the buy button and actually getting their product in hand.
Amazing use of that, let's say, idle time. Thank you. And may I ask, what types of post-purchase flows exist and you recommend for people to use? And what can basically brands achieve with using these flows?
Yeah, so I like to break this out by zooming out first. So you have the traditional flows that everyone is kind of used to if, quote unquote, things go well with your order, right? You don't have any delays, any issues in fulfillment. And then you have your exception flows. And those are things like delays, loss in transit, issues with their orders. So whereas I was just talking about the order tracking page itself, brand operators will know that there's also the transactional email portion. So there's kind of two different strategies or two different assets of this strategy that you can tap into. Emails are a little bit more, they have more compliance around them, obviously, right? In terms of deliverability and everything that you can put in a transactional email specifically. And then the order tracking page is really where you can let your strategy flourish and make it custom to your brand. So right now we're going to focus on the email, the transactional email part of it. So within transactional emails, you have the what I'm calling the typical or the traditional flows. Everything goes well. And then you have those exception flows. So The traditional flows, those are things that every brand should be sending out, right? It's everything a customer would want to know about their order. But what sometimes, and you can have the design of those look different, right? And so you can have the traditional out of the box, Shopify has all of these type of order notifications like order confirmed, out for shipping, or in transit, out for delivery, and then delivered. And those are extremely helpful in just keeping customers aware of where their order is. And you can have some branding in those transactional emails that, isn't overwhelming. The kind of compliance hat, if I were to put it on, you have to have that transactional email or transactional information be primary in an email, but you can still put like a little bit of marketing in those emails. And then when you go into the exception flows, this is where sometimes there's a big disconnect from the consumer experience and what a brand operator would want to kind of happen. And there's a lot of frustration. So say, a customer, their order is delayed and they haven't gotten a notification from the team that it's delayed. So they think, okay, my last email that I got from the brand said Tuesday it's going to be here, and Tuesday comes around, Wednesday comes around, they haven't seen it. Now they're inbounding to a brand's team saying, where's my order? I'm frustrated. I don't know where it is. Like, refund me, whatever. Worst case scenario, right? Now, the thing that I've seen brands who invest in their post-purchase experience and really go the extra mile is they are automating exception flows to when issues happen. So that is saying, if there has been a out for delivered email that went out yesterday and there hasn't been another email that it was delivered within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever, each brand knows kind of what their SLAs are or what their expectations are around fulfillment windows of, if they haven't gotten it within 24 hours, like probably an issue is going on. They can automate to check, if there's been an update, if there's been a carrier scan. If there hasn't, send out an email that says, hey, we think your order's delayed. Like, please don't freak out. Here is, an extra 10% on your next order just because of the inconvenience. Let us know if there are any additional issues, but you should be getting it soon. And that email flow, that automation alone has a very powerful mechanism to drop like Wismo or where's my order tickets. So those exception flows that can be set up for any of those problematic order triggers are really where the brands who go above and beyond in this strategy can win and help their support team, because they can decrease those Wismo tickets on average at Malomo. And that's, this is our internal data. We've seen drops of up to 50% in Wismo tickets just from putting in these flows and taking a few of the, like we have reporting that will tell you, this is your average fulfillment for this carrier. Then you can carry that into your problem orders or your, exception flows, put triggers in for, okay, I know my average fulfillment time is 4 days. If this person hasn't gotten an update in 5 days, something's wrong. So trigger that automation and do all those things. So yeah, that's kind of the two typical flows that I think are strategic for brands to work through and go through the experience themselves around, okay, if there is an order delay, what happens? What communications are going to our customers? Or even if like there's a marketing email that is scheduled to go out, but someone hasn't gotten their delivery, like probably opt them out of that campaign because they're not going to want to see a marketing email from you when their order is delayed. All of those little things that you have to think through when you're a brand operator, but can also get really swept under the rug if you're not thinking about it, or if you just simply don't know that there are options. Because a lot of the e-com space is seeing what people have done, seeing what your peers are doing and being like, oh yeah, why am I not doing that?
Amazing. It's so amazing to see how just a little bit of proactivity can help you in actually like avoiding all the possible frustrations of your customers. And it's not really hard to do. Right?
Yeah. And that's what it shouldn't be really hard to do, because then people aren't going to do it, right? Like I think that's the beautiful area about this space is it is pretty low in terms of the onboarding or the experience. But it really pays off in dividends in whether you're looking at the customer experience, the branded customer experience, or the actual returns of increasing repeat purchase rates, or, decreasing support tickets. There's kind of those three buckets that you can evaluate against. And I think that's why, at Malomo, we're seeing a lot of our marketing is educational, because once people see it, they're like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I do that?
Amazing. Thank you. I have one more question, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, love it.
And I want to ask you, what are the top three, like, say, most effective features to include during the order tracking to improve engagement and sales? And could you comment on what are the expected results of each of these?
Yeah, for sure. So now we're kind of going back into the branded order tracking space. And this is where brands can be really creative. And so from the Malomo side of things, we recommend kind of three different levers to pull. And it's up to brands. Obviously, it's like fully customizable. They can do what they want, but this is kind of what we've seen majority of brands find success in. And so the first thing that we usually recommend, so I'm going to walk through kind of if you were to see a tracking page, like the actual landing page, the first, like below the fold. So the fold, you have above the fold, or in the header, you have the transactional information. You know, there's a block that says gonna arrive on Tuesday. It has a beautiful image from your brand behind it. Right below that is where we assess, okay, if your brand has complementary products to, you know, if you only have one SKU, maybe don't use this strategy. Or if you have a really high AOV or a one-time purchase, or if there's a long purchasing cycle, things like that, that's what would change the strategy. But for the average e-commerce brand, you typically have a lot of complementary products. Mm-hmm. And so what we've seen be really successful with our brands is if you put cross sells or upsells for the product recommendation space or block on the page, and if those are personalized and dynamic. So what I mean by that is if someone, say I am buying from a shoe brand and I buy a pair of sandals, or actually let's make it sneakers. If I buy a pair of sneakers and I don't shop anything else on your site, I just landed on your site for sneakers and I popped off after I purchased, I might not know that you guys have complementary laces or insoles or socks. And so what you can put is obviously those complementary products right below the fold where I could say, oh, I didn't even know this brand had that. Like, let me just add them to my cart. And then that's how you get that repeat purchase rate. And I think one of the things that is most interesting, because obviously, as I mentioned, it depends what your SKUs are. It depends what your industry is. But one of the most interesting things when we break out in terms of the Malomo team, when we break out kind of results on the AOV side, when you break apart like average order value for each brand, typically, and I'm going to try and do this off the cuff, but I think I got it. So we kind of go by bands of 100 for AOV. So for brands that are 0 to 100 AOV, typically they see an extra 30 cents added per order. So you have to take your order volume and, you know, increase it by 30% to get that number of what it would be just by having this strategy of putting cross sells and upsells on your order tracking page. The next band is 100 to 200, and that sees typically $1.30 added for that band. Mm-hmm. The next band above it, which is the 200 to 300, is that $3 and I think 60 cents that is added. So you kind of see as customers having a higher AOV, they kind of want a more branded, better experience. And that reflects in the dollars that you see back from a platform or a strategy like this. So that's kind of how we measure product recommendations, is by that repeat purchase rate. And the easiest way to break it out to be industry agnostic is by AOV. The second strategy that we've seen most effective, so this is for brands who either put this further down the page, so they can have multiple CTAs going, or they elect, you know, my customer is not trying to make a repeat purchase. You know, we sell couches or furniture, right? Like they're not trying to, if they just bought a couch, they're not trying to buy another couch. So this is where you can kind of have your referrals or your VIP experience or your loyalty program really shine through. This also really works well for subscription customers. So you can segment to share, you know, these are the customers that are first time or they buy every so often, but subscription customers, they probably don't need upsells, right? So share their referral or share signing up for your VIP program. And that does one of two things. It obviously increases signups for those programs, or I've even seen, you know, SMS signups where people will say, sign up for our marketing SMS to get exclusive perks, whatever, right? So you can feed into your other channels through order tracking. And then the second thing that it does is it rewards the customers who are engaging with you. And so I think during that post-purchase experience, I said at the top of this conversation, we see on average 4.6 views to a tracking page per order. So the customers who are engaging a lot with your brand, they want something to continue to engage with. And this is a great, great way for them to do that. And then the third kind of approach or strategy can also be, again, further down the page, or it can be your leading CTA on a branded order tracking page, is something educational. So I gave the case study of the, how to properly clean your pot so that, you don't ruin it. And there's so many different ways that brands could take this educational approach. And I've seen some really cool things. But you can have how-to videos, you can have UGC, you can have, how to care for your product. It can showcase, your brand's mission or something that is really important and central. And I think that approach lends itself to the relationship building between a brand and their customer. And then also, it kind of gives a higher level understanding and makes a brand stickier with their consumers. And maybe you can share something about your brand that, if you do a lot of research or you see just from website traffic, a lot of people don't hit that page, but they really, really resonate with it once they see it. Or you can have, your social media or videos of, cool tricks to use, this, or if you have a brand ambassador, like their new collection, whatever you want it to be. So those are kind of the three ways that we see a lot of brands engage in this space, but there's obviously so many other cool one-off case studies. And I'm happy to go into those, that, brands have done that have been really, really awesome to see them get creative in this space.
Amazing. Just wanted to ask you, since you mentioned that you can actually have a nice impact on the AOV, that means that the purchases that are happening after the first purchase are being attributed to the first purchase, basically, right?
Yeah. So the way it works, and I'll drill down like specifically from Malomo, because that's the reporting we pull from. We use like a 1-day attribution window to attribute back to, if someone has an open order and they view their order tracking page, if they make another order within 1 day of viewing that, then that's attributed back to Malomo. So we made that conscious decision because there's obviously so many different clicks that customers, are engaging with a brand. So we were like, we need it to be a small window to really see the potential of this. So yes, it gets, from a brand's perspective, it is attributed within that 1-day window. And that's where we pull that revenue lift for the Malomo platform itself is like what has been purchased a day within viewing this branded order tracking page. And it's nice because as a brand, you get to see, the engagement side of the experience rather than sending them to a carrier site like UPS or FedEx.com, where the experience is fractured and you don't really get those analytics, versus with Malomo, you send them back to your website and can see you can put tags on those pages to see kind of where people are clicking and whatnot.
Right. I was just thinking, I don't know if this makes sense, but once you make the order, right, and you want to track where the order is, and you can actually send in the same order, so you don't have double spent for the shipping. So if you're fast enough to actually upsell something, then the customer might actually save up on the double shipping if they're checking the tracking, or actually where their order is. If it's still not shipped, you can actually ship it at the same time. Just if you've forgotten this or that, still time to add to your existing order, not to make another one, etc. So not sure if that's part of any strategies that you've seen, but it could be a nice thing. I saw it a few examples of a few shops, specifically if you have like longer prep time for the packages. This could be a viable option.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where someone's, their fulfillment, depending on if they use 3PLs or, are fulfilling internally, that's where it could be made of like, okay, where could we have this strategy and what's like the logistical back end? And that's why, we work with so many 3PL partners or just logistics partners of seeing, okay, what can you do in the space and like the right places to check before packing an order and making sure all your systems are updated for that exact reason. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a really interesting space that once you get kind of into the nitty gritty, you can think about like exactly the use case that you just said, or even I've seen one of our brands, they have figured out how to put transactional information into marketing emails. So what Malomo does is it obviously makes the transactional experience more marketable, but they have found, a workflow that allows them to put the Malomo data into their marketing emails. And then when customers are getting marketing emails, they see little icons of like, their package is shipped, their package is out for delivery, it's delivered. And it's really cool what you can kind of do once you understand understand the abilities or the opportunities, and then drill in with, okay, well, if we can, motivate someone by time, right? I've even seen like a countdown to use this, like discount code or whatever in the next X amount of time, and have it added to your order, or, as a thank you for buying, this is when you can use it, and kind of get in some of that like urgency FOMO marketing. So there's definitely a lot of use cases. And that's the fun part of my job, is because people will come to us and be like, can we do this? And we're like, let's try it. And then it's so fun to see. So I love that. I love that idea so much. And that,
Amazing.
that call out.
Amazing. Okay. So thank you for sharing all this information. If anybody wants to reach out to you, where can they do that?
Yeah, for sure. So LinkedIn, I'm always on there. And if you have any questions, Mariah@gomalomo.com, always willing to chat. I also have made a ton of design mockups for people. So if anyone's interested wants to see what would my recommended strategy be based off of, the ones that I kind of shared today, we have a form on our site at gomalomo.com where you can fill it out. It'll be sent to me just saying, you want to see a design mockup, and I will send you one back. Totally no strings attached, won't charge a dime, anything like that. But it kind of gives, it's a fun project for me, and kind of gives some great ideas to brands who are maybe looking to explore the space, but don't exactly know where to start out.
Got it. Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much for all the advice, and talk to you soon.
Yes. Thank you. This has been so fun. I love these conversations, and I hope that, comes through, because it is just awesome to see people excelling in ecom. So thank you for having me. This has been a joy.
Thank you.